Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up, making things happen. Love talking to creative people about creative things. This is part 2 of our year-end movie wrap-up, the movies of 2024. I'm talking to actor, writer, I don't know if he directs, but he's a film enthusiast. Drew Droege is back, as well as Glenn Gaylord, who is the senior film critic of The Queer Review. Last week we did part 1. This is part 2. Lots of fun movies. Keep a list handy because there's some stuff you're going to want to see. I know there was stuff that I want to see. So before I get to that, I want to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by me. I do it because I love it. I'm into it. But if you want to help me pay my bills or support the podcast, there are a couple things you can do. You could go to DennisAnyone.net and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. I also have a thing there called Buy Me a Coffee. And a gentleman named Chris C. today bought me a coffee. And it always makes my day when I get one of those little notices. So I appreciate it. It makes me very happy. So the other thing you do is become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows with the Derek and Romaine banner over it. Lots of fun queer shows. For a monthly fee, you get my show early, and you get all these other great shows. So check that out at dnrstudios.com. Oh, and I also want to get a plug in for the Mismatch Game. It's our Valentine's show, all thorned up edition. It's Saturday, February 8th. At the LGBT Center here in Los Angeles. We've got Jackie Beat. Sherry Vine is making her Mismatch Game debut as Rue McClanahan. We've got Melissa Peterman back for the second time. The first time she did it was in 2007. She's back. We've got Felix Pyre doing the show. We've got Danny Casillas doing the show. And we got Tom Lank, genius. So come out and see it. You can learn about that at lalgbtcenter.org. Also, my Instagram has a link to the tickets. That's Saturday, February 8th. If you need a laugh or you need a hug, that's what we're going to be serving up at the Mismatch Game. All right, enough of the plugs. Let's get back to our movie wrap-up with Glenn Gaylord and Drew Droege. Joining me from Los Angeles via Zoom, it's actor, writer, film enthusiast Drew Droege and Glenn Gaylord, the senior film critic from The Queer Review. It's part 2 of our movie wrap-up of 2024. Extravaganza. Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
We've done this a few years, but this is the first time we've actually broken up our recording on a different day. So I've had time to see a few things that I hadn't seen before. We're refreshed. It's all happening. So in the first installment, we talked about a lot of the big movies, The Substance, Brutalist. We hit a bunch of those. But I was looking at my list, and we have a lot more to cover. So, Glenn, why don't you take us to your next favorite movie or your next moment out of time? You love to find wonderful, memorable moments from different movies. So take it away.
Yeah, sure. And also the time in between has given me a lot of time to reflect on some of the horrible things Drew said, and we're going to call it.
Good.
I can't get to The Last Showgirl yet.
Right.
I can't.
Well, and also all of these movies are having scandals too, like so you can't hardly keep up.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of unfurling.
Yeah, I'm going to make it my life's mission to convince Drew of the merits of The Last Showgirl.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh God. Good luck.
All right. All right.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
Coming back to the moments at a time, my pick here is A Real Pain, which I, like some of the other films, I've seen more than once. I just keep going back to it. And it's actually streaming now, so it's I think it's on Hulu. Or does anyone know?
Maybe I think it is on Hulu. Yeah, I watched it for the second time the other night on Hulu. Yeah.
With that film, and I don't want to spoil anything with it, so I'm going to be gentle here. My moment is actually 2 bookended shots. And it's of a person sitting by themselves at an airport. I won't even say who. And the first time you see this shot, you don't really know what to think. You just think a solitary person. But then that same shot recurs later in the film, and it's filled with so much sorrow and loneliness and sadness. And I just thought it was beautiful how Jesse Eisenberg, as a director and a writer, figured out a way to really get under the skin of a character through these mirrored shots. And I mean, there's so much from that movie that has stuck with me, but that I just thought that was a really cool way to really get into a character.
I love this movie. I've seen it twice. I cry a lot in it. Kieran Culkin is kind of like this open wound person, not just as a character, but as an actor. You could just, he's got so much humanity and pain and all of it going on, and I just start crying. He's like, I could go to his birthday party, look at his face, and just start crying. Like, there's something about him, right? And he also in the campaign, he's sort of like doesn't take it too seriously. He's kind of like, you know, in the Actors on Actors with Coleman Domingo, he's like saying he thinks astrology's stupid, and like I don't know, he's not quite playing the game. And I don't know, but he's so moving, and I love stories about travel and road trips. And I think we all have people in our lives that are complicated, and maybe we're the complicated one. But there's love there, and I don't know. I just thought it was beautiful. And you get Jennifer Grey being fabulous. Yeah.
Kieran Culkin kind of harkens back to me to a lot of those dangerous actors that I love. And a lot of them come from SNL. Like I think of Molly Shannon, Chris Farley, John Belushi, where they're just kind of loose cannons and you don't know what you're going to get, but you always feel something watching them.
You know who I thought of when you said that? Melissa McCarthy. Because she seems like a nice person, but in these characters, this rage is in her that is so like chilling. Like, I don't know. When you said that, that's who I thought of. Drew, what did you think of Real Pain?
Yeah, I mean, when you watch the outtakes of This Is 40, when Melissa is making Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann laugh so hard, and she's just going hard, and you're like, this rage is so real.
Right.
And so, like, honest. And I think that's what makes Melissa so really funny. And yes, I love a dangerous actor. I agree on Kieran Culkin. I think he's turned into one of our most interesting actors working now. I loved him in Igby Goes Down. I loved him in Succession so much. And I thought he was great in this movie. And I thought this movie was good. I wanted it to go further. I wanted the movie to rise to him. I mean, he's definitely the star. I think he's, you know, front runner to win the Oscar this year. And it's going to be very cool. I mean, I think, and I love that he's not taking the whole thing too seriously.
Right. Have you noticed that in his appearances and stuff?
It's so cool. It's also like somebody who's been in the industry all of his life, and you know, in the shadow of his brother, and scandals with his, like all this stuff. He's lived this life, and he's just kind of like, this is fun, this is cool, you know. And I love any movie, about a difficult person and like what it's like to be with that person and have to endure them. I feel like it's a lot in like what I try to, you know, put out there and what I write and do. So I related so much to this character and the whole thing. I wanted maybe less, like, there's something about like writer, director, star movies, like kind of, it felt in a Woody Allen way. I think it was very much an homage to Woody Allen in a way that, like, I don't always love. There's so much Jesse Eisenberg is what I'm basically saying. And it just was a lot of that.
Right.
Also, like, when like, filmmakers put themselves in movies and then they like show their feet a lot. Did we talk about this, Glenn?
Right. No, he shows his feet. Like, it's a bit. Did you talk about this? Did you point this out? Like, he's obsessed with his own feet. And like, I'm just always creeped out when, I mean, we've seen a lot of indie films and they're not this bad. And I thought, and he's fine. I just like, you know, I've seen a lot worse, but you know, you see the movies that are written by and starring someone where all the characters are kind of coming up to them going, you're so brilliant. You're so normal. You're so everyman, you know. And it's sort of like, oh, that's what you want us to think about you. Interesting.
I don't know. So that was annoying to me. And I love Jennifer Grey. This was actually a movie that I wish was longer because, like, it felt a little slight to me, and I would have given it 20 more minutes where it could have gone deeper and been even more of a real pain.
Yeah.
I think it could have gone further. But I liked it. I liked the movie.
I had this fantasy. Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
I just think that's fair. I'm going to agree with Drew. I could have used 20 more minutes of it. Yeah. I loved going on the journey. I do understand where he's coming from about what Jesse Eisenberg is signaling as a writer, director, actor in it. But I found enough there and, just enough about our relation to history that I thought was really moving.
Well, also, Jesse Eisenberg, it gets at the fact that, like, this guy is a pain, but everyone loves him ultimately in a way that they don't love Jesse Eisenberg. Like, the tour guide gives Kieran this deep hug, and then he's like, bye, Jesse. Like, yeah. I have this fantasy that they were doing the numbers, the independent financing numbers, and somebody's like, look, the foot fetishists will put us over budget if you just get a couple good shots of your feet in there. I know it's creepy, but look, we ran the numbers, and this is it. And you're like, fine.
Tarantino is a silent backer of the film.
Yeah. Oh, he's got that thing going on. All right. Glenn, what movie do you want to talk about next? Or was that yours? That was yours. Drew, what movie do you want to talk about next?
Well, I have a lot on my list, and so I batched them this time.
I love a batch.
Sort of thematically, and they're this is real slapdash that I just did. So, but my first sort of like pairing these are two films about the horrors and the pageantry and the threat of the Catholic Church. And two movies that I loved this year, both wildly different, but both incredibly effective. The first is Conclave, which I was so surprised how much I loved it. It felt like the best beach novel turned into this, like, it felt very throwback, like very much a movie. It also is like the best episode of Drag Race you can imagine, because I kept being like, who's it going to be? Who's going to win? I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and the incredible Isabella Rossellini, who does so much with such a small part, but is so effective to me. I thought it was funny. I love the way it was shot. And I just thought the ending, I waited a while to see this movie, and I was happy that I didn't know the ending, and did not see it coming. The other film that I love that it's in the same world, that's very different, is The First Omen, which I thought was one of the best horror movies I've seen in years. I was so surprised by this movie. I didn't grow up Catholic. A lot of Catholic things are not my favorite. I'm not really scared of nuns. I don't really know didn't really deal with priests, whatever. This movie was terrifying, but it also had a very feminist vibe to it as well. And it felt like this really like great 70s Vampiros Lesbos throwback to it. I loved the score. I loved everything. The movie was really sexy and really scary, and it was unlike anything both of these were unexpected delights.
I actually went to a screening of The First Omen, and the director was there, I think female, and it feels like it happened 17 years ago. I
know. It was the beginning of 24,
I'm like, wait, was that before the pandemic? Yeah, but I remember thinking it was cool. And I saw Conclave, and Glenn, I think you may have been with me on Election Day. And so I always associate the two of them. But I might be seeing it again this Friday with a Q&A. I liked how bitchy it was, how sort of catty and like mean girly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a little bit campy in that way. And I appreciated that. And I agree. I loved the ending. Glenn, what did you think of Conclave and The First Omen?
Yeah, I agree with both assessments of both films. I want to add Immaculate to that, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're all kind of in that same wheelhouse. Yes. They all kind of go a little too far at times, and where you don't expect them to go, especially Conclave. I mean, I just thought, wow, am I watching Dynasty? This is so bitchy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Such a delicious way. I mean, that Italian guy who was just so horrible to his assistant right off the bat. And I remember turning to Dennis and the rest of the gang that we were watching the film with at the end, and kind of like you, Drew, I just went, well, I don't think any of us saw that coming. And I love it that you can't figure out. And I thought it was really smart, and where it went was kind of beautiful and meaningful in a film that was set up just to be kind of like mean-spirited and hateful, where everybody is just juggling for power, and that's kind of gross. And then it came out with, it concluded with something really cool.
And really timely and really like relevant, for something that's kind of a pulpy thriller that just kind of edge on your seat kind of vibes. I want to talk about Babygirl with Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson and Antonio Banderas. Mm-hmm. I love this movie. It's like a throwback to the erotic thrillers of the 80s and 90s. And I saw a Q&A with the writer-director I just want to move in with her. She's amazing. But she always talked about how she loved those movies. But in those movies, the heroine would always have to be punished for exploring her sexuality. And in this movie, she didn't want to do that. Nicole Kidman plays this CEO who's like the perfect woman, but isn't really herself. And this young intern shows up at her company, and there's a spark there. And it turns out she likes being dominated, and they embark on this thing together. And I just thought it was a really funny comedy of manners. But I like movies that are honest about sexuality. I think they're important. And I just love that Nicole Kidman, in the time we were recording this podcast, she's made 2 miniseries and another movie.
100%.
I know. I just can't. In the time it takes me to take a box of clothes to Goodwill,
I don't know what it is. She hates being at home.
I think so. I kind of think, do you like your kids?
I don't know how she does it.
Right.
I just watched that series Expats. So that was like,
oh, I liked her in that. She dances around. I loved her.
In that, and she's, I mean, and yeah, like so many. Yeah, I know. I just feel like she's been in everything, but I love her. So
yeah, I just thought it was cool. You got Harris Dickinson, who he's handsome, but he's not like a knockout. Like you don't look at him and go, "Oh my gosh!" But then he's like, he's got this vibe going. He had it in Triangle.
Oh, he's got a real vibe. He's always deeply sexy in a very like specific way that, and
right.
I feel like every movie he does, I'm always like, oh yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of understated, and I like he's in a hoodie, and they're in this hotel room that you could tell like Nicole Kidman has never been in a hotel room that wasn't that a luxury thing. Meanwhile, I was like, I would love to stay in that hotel room someday in New York City. That's my aspiration. That specific room. That specific room. They could rent that out. I would love it and go stand in the corner because we went and did the homage to the Nicole Kidman ad at the actual place. Right, yeah. So maybe my next pilgrimage is to go stand in the corner. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there was an article about how the Academy doesn't seem to like sexy movies, and between Queer and this one. And there was another one that they didn't acknowledge. I can't think of what. Challengers. That was the third. Like that they can't handle it, which is, I think there's a point there. So anyway, Babygirl. That's my thoughts. Any thoughts on Babygirl?
I really liked it. I thought it was fun. I had a good time with it. Yeah. I mean, I was on board. I thought it was very sexy. I like that. There was really great. I mean, I love that. I don't know. This is going to maybe be problematic. I love the movie that they talk about the work that she's had done. I mean, there's this moment with a daughter, where she basically like makes fun of Nicole Kidman for having had work done, and you see her reaction to it feels so human and hurtful, and also says a lot about like her character. And it's rarely do you see a movie star in a movie where that's not all about that. It's not the substance. It's not about those things. It's just sort of like casually acknowledging like, yeah, you want to stay young or you have issue or whatever. And I thought that was really just a small thing in the movie. And then I thought it was also very sexy. And
also that Nicole's willing to have that in the script and call attention to it.
Yeah. Totally.
When she got her AFI award, and she looked so dazzling in that gold dress, and she just full-on movie star with this incredible body of work, always taking chances. There's a part of me that thought not only is she a great actor that chose great things and threw herself into it, whatever her face strategy has been, worked. Yeah. And it's a fucking thing that you have to deal with if you're an actress. You know what I mean? I think and she did it right. And like, part of me is like, I don't know. That was part of her achievement. I think she bought herself more years of these kind of roles. I don't know if she had done nothing, she would have had the career. Maybe I'm being cynical, but I feel like it's something that men don't have to deal with. Nobody is, Robert De Niro is getting his thing, and but you have to make a plan, or it's a strategy that women have to do. And
she's always had a maturity as well to her that I think she's always realized that being an actor is first versus really. I mean, she's always been stunningly beautiful, but I don't think that's been the number one thing for her to, because I think I don't know. It's an impossible sort of thing, and I don't judge anybody for the decisions they have to. It's you're damned if you do. I don't like how I look. It's like I have to get work. I have to keep getting and considered for things. But she's always been like wise beyond her. I mean, to have done To Die For 30 years ago, that's when I knew I was a fan for life.
Well, and also
you watch that performance and you're like, oh, this person 100% gets it.
And also she's a very serious artist. You can tell that she thinks like an artist. That's what motivates her. And then there'll be this splashy 20-page magazine spread where she is giving you full fucking movie star. And she gave them all day. She wasn't like, I'll show up 30 minutes for a shoot. Like she delivers on that stuff. And I just love Kidman. So anyway, Glenn, thoughts on Babygirl?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, on Nicole Kidman, I mean, she has clearly taken the approach of wanting to work with interesting directors her whole career. I've always admired that she doesn't necessarily go for the easy choice. And in this one, I heard that she read the script and called the director and just said, "I'm all in." And getting Botox injections on camera was in the script. So she was all in, and she was basically getting ahead of it by saying, I'm going to confront you with this because how I feel about it is right here. Like you don't need to tiptoe around it.
Right.
And I thought that was cool. My moment out of time from the movie, though, was the first scene that she has dialogue with Harris Dickinson is he's her intern, and they had seen each other on the street where he had calmed a dog down by giving it cookies. And so the first time they actually talked to each other, she's like, "How'd you do that?" And he said, "With cookies." She goes, "Oh." And he goes, "Why? Do you want one?" And it immediately established the power dynamic between the two in a really cool way, where it's playful, and yet that's the beginning. That's where he's taking over. And by, being a little inappropriate with his boss. And I just thought that was a really cool in for the storyline. That's the inciting incident is the dog.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right. Glenn, what's your next movie?
I want to talk because Drew had mentioned what a great year for horror it was, so I'll kind of keep along with that same line of thought. And I would call this more a thriller than horror, but still, there was some great stuff out there last year, like The Omen 2, the First Omen. I thought Smile 2 was really engaging horror. Longlegs, I found a lot that was great in it. And this one, though, for me, really topped all of that was Strange Darling. It's a film that... First of all, Giovanni Ribisi, it's his debut as a cinematographer on a feature.
That's
and
cool.
I don't know how he didn't get an Academy Award nomination for this. I think the cinematography is one of the 3 stars of the film. Well,
cool.
The fourth, the script. But these are great performances. The storytelling in its fractured way had me leaning forward in my seat the whole time, trying to piece it together and figure it out. And I was completely sucked in from beginning to end. And it's gory and it's grotesque and it's really horrific. And yet it challenges your perception of not only characters, but of storytelling itself. And so I found this to be an incredible film.
I did not see it. Drew, did you see it?
I did, and it's also on my list. I had it
cool.
on my list. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. I absolutely loved this movie. From the jump, I was terrified. To me, like, there's something like home invasion, someone is chasing you. Nothing is scarier to me than that. Like, monsters, whatever, but people out for you. And the way they tell the story, I did not see it coming. I thought the actors were phenomenal. Yes, the writing. I didn't realize that Giovanni Ribisi was the cinematographer or the DP until whatever. I thought it's amazing. I didn't love the ending. For me, the movie, there was like almost 10 minutes, or I don't know what length, but there's a moment where they could have ended the movie. And to me, I would have been like A+. It goes further and does something that I don't want to give spoilers away at all. It gets us, you really need to not know much about this movie to go into it. For me, the ending I didn't need. The ending made it less great, but I have still been thinking about it all year. And, I guess we saw it late summer when it came out, but it has stayed with me, and I highly recommend it. It is a nail biter, like anything else.
All right. Well, I have to put that on my list to watch. Drew, what's your next movie or your next batch?
My next batch, well, that was on my list, so I'll name the movie that I sort of batched with it in the sort of genre horror films that I really loved this year, and it's the end of the Ty West trilogy, Maxxine, which I just thought was a blast. I love all of his movies. House of the Devil to me is one of the greatest horror movies ever. Like, I always mention it to people, and they're like, "What's a good horror movie?" I say, "Watch House of the Devil." It's just unbelievable. And so I've loved. I'm trying to think. Wait, it was Pearl was right before. What's the first one?
X.
X. Oh, thank you. So X, and then Pearl, and then Maxxine. Thank you. All 3 different decades, different genres of films, different sort of filmmaking qualities. Maxxine is just loud, garish, 1985. It has that pulpy feel of like Body Double and Friday the 13th Part 5, which is awful, but it has that vibe to it. It feels very specifically that year. It's also very LA, very like, you know, Hollywood strip. It's fun. I didn't see it coming. And I think that Mia Goth is a star. I thought she just yet again. I mean, Pearl is her greatest performance where she really gets to like do all the heavy lifting, but she owns every frame of Maxxine, and I saw it twice and had a blast. I thought it was awesome.
I think I saw that for somebody's birthday, and it was really fun. But I went back and watched X because of that, because I hadn't been watching those movies. And there was a scene in X where I just remember them sitting around the cabin talking about something interesting that was about something to do with nudity or sexuality, or like I just was like, oh, there's these really interesting ideas in the middle of this horror movie, and I was like, okay, I like that they've got all this stuff going on and this stuff is on their mind. Glenn, what did you think of Maxxine?
I mean, I love the whole trilogy, and so and there's a line that finds its way into each of the films that was one of my moments out of time for this. I have two for Maxxine. One is just the line of "I will not accept the life that I do not deserve."
Yeah,
and you see it through the filter of these three films, and they all have different meanings in them. But these are films about ambition and about entitlement, about what you feel you are owed in life. And the horror that comes from that is really what makes these films to me stand out. They're kind of like De Palma-esque, and yet there's a heightened sense of the monster within us that I thought was really beautiful about these films. And then to illustrate that, there's an audition scene in Maxxine where she just kills the audition.
Yes.
And, you know, and she's a porn actress who wants to go legit. And so she does this audition. She's great. And she's the obvious choice. And she goes back out to the waiting area. All these other actors are, and she's basically like, you can all go home now because I nailed it.
I nailed it.
And I love that moment. And it's shot so perfectly the way Mia Goth stomps through that scene. I mean, she is definitely a star. She's been brilliant in these films.
Okay, so my favorite scary movie of the year, we'll do that next, is I loved Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah.
It's a 70s talk show, like 77, and they just get that aesthetic so right. Like, it just looks and feels like a 70s talk show, and it's the Halloween episode, and then all this fucked up stuff happens on the show. They're trying to do some kind of spooky stuff for Halloween, and then it goes super spooky. And a lot of the actors were kind of familiar to me, but not household names, at least in my household. And so it just felt really like we were watching this tape from 1977. There's an actor in it named Faisal Bazi, who plays like this kind of, I think he's Middle Eastern or Egyptian, and then he has this crazy thing that happens to him in the movie. But he's handsome in the way, I think I daydream of falling in love with someone from another place, from another country, who doesn't have like American mindset. That's my fantasy, and he's my latest one. And so I've been maybe Google imaging him. I don't know, but and then there's this.
Wait, did he go on your dream board?
He did. I wasn't going to say that because people get tired of hearing about it, and it's also a bit of like, I don't know, a little cringe. But he did, yeah. And so far, no word from him. But you know what? There's always this year, so we'll see what happens. But I thought it was cool. I thought they did an amazing job at capturing the aesthetic. Like, just every little detail felt like 1977 talk show to me. Yeah, I was into it.
Yeah, that movie is starring David Dastmalchian, who's an incredible actor who I always love in things, and he's just a genius. And he's great in that movie.
He's done a lot of superhero stuff, and like he was so believable as a host. Like, you felt like he was Leno, Conan. Like he had that kind of feeling.
Yeah, he's also in that Prisoners, the Denis Villeneuve movie, right? Isn't that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and they're like in a wall? Yeah. He's the baddie in that movie. Yeah, he's always great. I wanted to love that movie more. Like, I loved the idea of the movie, and I kept waiting for the Exorcist part of it to happen. I was I don't know. I love the idea. I was like, great to whoever did that and made that happen. It was like, for me, a little boring. And I know that was like sort of the intention. It's like you're watching like an actual tape. And I kind of wish they never went away into the commercial breaks because that broke it up for me.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of saying two different things. Like, I'm like, I wish it was more interesting. I don't know. I hate giving a note to a movie. Like, I wish it was something else because that's not fair to the movie. I didn't make it.
Right.
But, you know, I just would have loved like an actual like 70s talk show with like a Dinah Shore type person and blah, blah, blah. And then so you can kind of have fun with that and then get into the demon of it all because the whole thing was so horror.
Yeah.
But, and then when it cut away in the in-betweens, I was less into it.
Interesting.
But, I thought, again, I kudos for originality and, you know, I'm glad I saw it, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Glenn, thoughts on Late Night with the Devil?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm going to contradict Drew here for a second and this is only because I love the trope and I acknowledge that it's a trope, but when they cut to commercial after all hell breaks loose, not commercial, actually, they just put up a card of technical difficulties.
Right. Yeah.
It made me giggle, even though I know it's been overdone a million times. It was only because the length that they went to for all hell to break loose right before they cut away. It was so obviously not a technical difficulty. It was just that the world ended. Made me laugh. But yeah, it's not my favorite movie of the year. I mean, I thought it was really astute in its production design, in its acting, in its making us believe the world that it exists in. But yeah, I'm going to go along with Drew a little bit. I was a little bored at times.
Yeah, I just remember watching going, oh, I am into this. I'm into this. I love 70s stuff though. So,
yeah,
and the actors felt so fresh to me. So it really did. Was able to sort of go, oh, this is a real tape from this era. I kind of was able to get on board with it. So, all right, Glenn, what's your next moment out of time?
All right. Okay. So I'm going to change course here a little. This is a film that's one of the 5 international feature nominees this year at the Oscars, and the one that's getting the least buzz. And I just think this is a masterpiece of a film. It's called The Girl with the Needle, and it is harrowing. It feels like the companion piece to Eraserhead by the late great Lynch. Yet it's telling a true story from the early 1900s. I think it's set in 1919 in Denmark. And it's based on a true story of this woman who becomes a wet nurse for this other woman who is kind of providing babies to finding homes for babies with rich customers of hers. And everything is not what it seems. And I won't spoil it any beyond that. It's got the most beautiful black and white cinematography where every frame is just a piece of art. And the 2 lead performances, especially the woman who plays the woman who runs the agency, who is a legendary Danish actress. She is incredible, and she gets this scene late in the film that you don't see coming, and you can't believe how ballsy it is. Because this is a film of a lot of corsets and properness, and then it just gets ugly and dark and dank, and everything's wet and gross, and it's horrific, and it's very timely, because this is really a story about a woman's bodily autonomy. And so it couldn't be more timely. Any of you guys see it?
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't. I saw the trailer and thought it looked incredible, so I want to see it.
Yeah. All right. That's going on my list to watch too. All right, Drew, what's your next movie or your next batch?
All right, so my next batch, these are both sort of use an art form that I usually, for whatever reason, I don't want to say I avoid it, but I don't seek out animated films, and it's not usually my thing. There's so many major Disney movies I've never seen. I'll watch them if they happen for me, but I don't usually seek them out. And I saw 2, one that's kind of a loose use of animation, but I batched it together because I just love both of these movies. The first is also an international Oscar nominee and an animated nominee, and it's Flow, which it is so wonderful, and see it on the big screen if you can. It's a Latvian film with all animals in the cast, but there's no dialogue. There's no human dialogue. It's just the animals making their own noises. and it's riveting. You don't really know what time in the world it is. It doesn't really matter. It's just this magical, beautiful, funny, engaging. It started in about 5 minutes in. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hang with this the whole time. I was getting a little bit of anxiety at the beginning. And then I was like, oh, I just relaxed into it. And I was so into it. I was moved. It's beautiful. It's everything. I highly recommend.
They showed his, there was a video of the director, the guy, the animator, watching the Oscar nominations with his dog. And it's a cute little, he did a self video, but when he gets nominated for both of them, his acknowledgement is kind of understated, and he just rubs his dog, and you just feel like he's in his little apartment in Latvia or whatever having this moment. It's fun to watch. Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I definitely want to. Glenn, what did you think of Flow?
I love it. It's no Memoir of a Snail in that same category, but it's great. It's a tale of survival, and it made me so anxious for my own dog watching it, because you just realize how they are at the mercy of everything.
Yes.
Like whatever happens, they just have to go with it. And that's what this movie is.
Are you saying that the circle of life is a bitch?
I'm saying that there probably isn't a circle of life.
There isn't it's a circle of death. It's a circle of death. All right.
My one issue with Flo was that, and it's all intentional, it's baked into his aesthetic, is that you've got these photorealistic backgrounds, and then some of the characters, especially the dog, are just dead-eyed and under-rendered. They're not fully rendered, but then some of the animals are. And I just thought, okay, I don't feel anything for this dog, and I should. And that was an issue, and I couldn't wrap myself around what he was trying to do with the visual of that. But other than that, it's a masterpiece.
That's so interesting. It didn't even clock that for me.
Yeah,
I have that eye to see that kind of stuff. No.
He's been criticized for it, but it's clearly deliberate. Apparently, he's done that in his past films as well.
Well, it's quite an accomplishment that he snuck into Best Foreign Film as well as animated. Drew, did you have another movie in your batch?
Yeah, I was just going to tie in another film that I thought used animation brilliantly, and it was a very praised movie. I mean, I loved this movie, The People's Joker.
Oh, yeah.
Which is this groundbreaking trans take on the Joker and Batman. It's one of the most brutally, blisteringly funny movies that I couldn't believe how the shots it takes at comedy, the shots it takes at mainstream everything. I thought it was a masterpiece. This filmmaker Vera Drew made this film that was unlike anything I've ever seen on a shoestring budget. I was like, more from you, please, more art like this. I was fully engaged in that film, and I'd much prefer that to the Todd Phillips Joker films.
I'm not a fan of the Todd Phillips Joker films. I only saw the first one. But what is it? Does it tell kind of a Joker-like story with this twist?
Yes, it does. Yeah. I mean, like it's sort of like just imagining everything's in an alternate universe, and it just does a really just an exciting sort of just takedown of all of it, and sort of just their expectations. But it also really goes after SNL in a way that I was like, I haven't seen anything take down just like mainstream comedy, which I just love from a queer person. I just love the queer point of view of being like, we've never fit in. Y'all kind of tolerate us, but you don't get us. And good. Don't even try. I loved it. Felt so, for us, by us kind of a thing. And I felt it made me feel very proud to be queer and sort of laugh at it. And it felt very young in a really exciting way that I was like, oh, this is such this singular vision, and more things like this, please.
I love when you can feel a director's youth in the movie. Like, it has this exuberance. And I remember thinking that in La La Land when the camera went in the pool and swung around. I'm like, this is somebody younger. This is not a 70-year-old, person jumping in the pool with the thing. You can kind of feel let's try this-ness of it. Right. Glenn, what did you think of People's Joker?
I had a really strange take on it, only because it reminded me of my film school days at UCLA. There was a professor named Shirley Clark, who was this legendary documentary filmmaker, and she taught a class on experimental video. and she encouraged everybody to be as punk rock as, you could be. And, one of my classmates made a short film of him holding his cat up and holding a chainsaw to it, saying, "I'm going to chainsaw my cat." And he was wearing a mohawk, and it was very, very punk. And this film, People's Joker, reminded me of that. It felt kind of like a student film experimental video, gone crazy, really balls out, just saying, kind of what Drew was saying. It's a very in your face, like, I don't give a fuck. This is my story. It feels almost like a diary, the film, very autobiographical, yet creative. And it's just nonstop creative. It just keeps coming at you with different styles and ways of filming things. And so, I think it's like this great experimental video, and that's a compliment.
I love that. All right. My next movie is a queer movie called National Anthem. Did you guys see this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about this community of kind of rodeo, homestead, like that lifestyle, but they're all queer. And this 21-year-old construction worker ends up in this community and kind of finds a place for himself there. And he seems very straight on the surface. And then he falls in love with this trans character. And I don't know, it just had this kind of, wow, what would it be like if a place like this existed? And then I went back and watched the trailer to kind of refresh my memory before this podcast. And there's a scene at the end, near the end, where a non-binary character, African-American in a dress, sings the national anthem, and everyone else is sort of standing around and watching it now in this moment, and all of this iconography of the West, of rodeos that we always associate with heterosexual people, that we don't have a place in that world, and this movie creates a place in that world. It's just kind of, I just thought it was really original and like a kind of like, oh wow, what if this could be a thing? And then I went back and I was on IMDb, and this director named Luke Gifford had made a short before this with Pamela Anderson, and it was like he called it a coming of middle age short, where she's sort of dealing with the wellness and beauty and stuff. And this was a few years ago, but I'm like, oh, Luke Gifford was on the Pam Anderson bandwagon, the 2.0 Pam, before all of us. So anyway, I thought it was a cool movie. I saw it on video. I don't think I saw it on big screen, but National Anthem. And Drew, did you see it?
I did. I thought it was beautiful. It was a very horny, very sexy movie. I was like, oh, this is so like
all these limbs tangled up with each other, and everyone's screwing everybody.
It's sort of like and I go back with some of the filmmakers and producers. I saw their names on it. I was like, oh my God, these are friends of mine I made web series with years ago, and I love them. I'm so happy that they made this really kind of beautiful, singular experience. I kind of was like, I think I wanted more like of a movie, but I also enjoyed the fantasy of it all, of like, oh, what if,
Yeah.
It was one of those, you're like, it's definitely like an idealistic thing and that you want to be true, and you're like, oh, one day or hopefully there is this
right.
Xanadu in the West where all these people exist and and enjoy each other and themselves, in this way.
Well, there is a queer rodeo circuit, and because I've been to them and just did the 2 dances.
I could tell that that a lot of the people had to be real.
Yeah, I think there is a world like this in a way. Glenn, did you see it?
I didn't, but that's Charlie Plummer, who's correct.
Yeah,
Christopher Plummer's son or grandson. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I do want to see it because I've admired him. He has been someone who takes continual chances in his acting roles that I've really liked. So, yeah, this is definitely on my radar now to check out. I think it's streaming now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's streaming now.
There's this moment where they
Robin Lively. We have Teen Witch as the mother.
She's really good too.
Yeah,
and there's a little brother. Like it's just it's like he finds his home in this place with all of these people, and yet it causes friction at home in a way that feels kind of not too stereotypical. There's a scene where Charlie Plummer is in a Walmart or somewhere, and the trans girl that he's fallen for is giving him eyeshadow, and he's sort of embracing it, and it's just blurring all of that stuff. And it really kind of underscores like what are all the things that we've bought into that you can't do, that you can't wear eyeshadow if you're a guy or whatever it is.
Right.
I just thought it was very evocative. So yeah, keep an eye out for that National Anthem.
And I don't think Charlie Plummer is related to Christopher Plummer.
Oh, really? All right. Glenn, what's your next movie?
So I'm going to steal a little bit from Drew here and bundle a couple together. Or it's an homage to Drew. So I'm going to put September 5th and Saturday Night together. These are films that are thematically different, but they're told similarly in that they are about the anxiety of real-time television.
Right.
September 5th being in the 1972 Munich Olympics, and it's told pretty much in real time from the control room of the ABC Sports coverage of it. And then Saturday Night, as you know, is the 90 minutes leading up to the first episode of Saturday Night Live. And that one, I've seen it a couple of times, and I was wrestling like, what is this movie trying to say? And it didn't dawn on to me until like much after seeing it later, a month after seeing it, I went, oh, this is a movie about trying to find your voice, because the main character, Lorne Michaels, doesn't really know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's trying to say, that's struggling with it the whole time. And sometimes the path to finding your voice is to just do the thing. And that it's not always something that is premeditated. And that's kind of how it felt like Saturday Night Live just kind of fell together. He kind of set the stage with all these disparate elements and went, go, and let's see what we get. And I thought that was a really interesting take on the creative process. And then September 5th was just a lesson in morals and ethics about what you should have on camera and what you shouldn't. And so they were both really impactful films for me in this past year.
I saw both of them, and I loved that September 5th used the original footage of Jim McKay at the Olympics, and they edited themselves into that. Like they used the real thing.
And Peter Jennings, right? That's Peter Jennings' voice, right?
Yeah, like it was the actual footage that we were all seeing on television, and it was so well integrated. And I saw a screening of Saturday Night where a lot of the cast were there and did a Q&A, and one of the things that they pointed out is that there were 88 speaking roles in that movie, and because the camera's sort of swinging around the set the whole time, they all had to be there all a lot, and it was sort of like I thought the casting was great in terms of the people who reminded you of the real people. I thought it was a little weird that they were acting like this is how it unfolded, but they would take this fun story from season 2 and insert it. And like they played around with it, but the device of the time and, oh, this is happening, but it's not really real because that was from 2 seasons later or whatever. Like they kind of wanted to have it both ways, which was entertaining, but it felt, if you knew it wasn't really how it happened in a way because they were taking these liberties with some of the content for entertainment value. So it was a little like, I don't think the two things didn't mesh as well for me as maybe I would have liked, but I enjoyed it. What's that? I can speak
to that because Jason Reitman spoke after a screening that I went to.
Right.
And he said they interviewed everybody who's still alive from that time, and nobody gave the same answer. Everybody had different stories and different observations, and so that gave him the freedom to kind of throw things together and not worry about the chronology or the facts.
Right.
And while it bothered me, I kind of went, yeah, that's in keeping with the tradition of Saturday Night Live, which even at the time was known as like a stoner's den, and just nobody's remembering anything correctly.
Right. No, I get that, I guess. But it just kind of didn't click completely for me. But it did have my favorite movie poster of the year. I loved the poster. Yeah, it had that kind of Mad Magazine caricature thing, and it was really cool. Drew, what did you think of Saturday Night or September 5th?
I really loved both of these movies. September 5th is on my list of favorite movies of the year. I was riveted by it. I sadly knew very little. I did not know the outcome. I knew that it had happened. I knew that there was a terrorist attack in real time at Munich Olympics, and that's all I knew. I have not seen Munich. I haven't seen that Spielberg film, and so it was really just like the events of it were the main parts of it were new to me. I agree with you. I love that they used real footage. I thought the actors were seamless. It's the best edited film of the year. And to put on the list of Oscar snubs, the fact that September 5th didn't get an editing nomination, and I don't even really know how I usually can't be the one to pick out, but I know that film was brilliantly edited. Just like Dune 2 and Wicked were brilliantly directed and also stubbed. It's just weird how okay, why not? But I felt like I loved the writing. I loved the script. I just thought that I also loved that it was about no, we're going to take the story because it is about power and who gets the story and who gets to break the news. And I love that it's no, this is sports department. We're live and we're going to take it and it's ours. And that sort of idea of we're figuring it out in real time as it goes. I was really riveted by it.
I also like that there was a female character in it and you could see the sexism at work in that world. They were really kind of dismissive of her and she kind of delivered on the job part of it. And
both of those, that and Saturday Night show sexism in its purity and how the women just kind of had to deal with it and kind of go, yeah, this is another day at the office.
Yeah. And,
and everyone that I think that has worked at Saturday Night Live instead of maybe the last 10 years has, there've always been 3 women on SNL and 12 men. And that's just how it works. And, and 1 person of color. And that's just how, someone thinks that's the, dynamic breakup of the world. But, I thought Saturday Night was riveting. I loved that. I kind of bought into the fantasy of it all. I know, obviously, Belushi on a skating rink and finding Zweibel at the bar in 10 minutes before the show or whatever. All those things were so, sure it didn't happen that way. But yes, I that's interesting that Jason Reitman said that because I feel there's so much mythology around SNL. My experience with it, people always want to be what was it? I've been there a few times to see it. I got to audition for it. What's crazy was there's a great documentary series on Peacock about SNL. And the very first episode is about the audition process. And I just watched it. And 20 years ago this year, I got to audition for Saturday Night Live in the group with Bill Hader and Andy Samberg. And they both are talking about their experience, and they're showing footage of their audition, and they're showing the date. I'm I was there that day, and there's a wall behind them. Just the two of them have a certain wall that I did not remember. And so I was I don't remember that at all from there. And there's so much of it, and every time I go, there's so much that happens. It's so manic there, and you're did that all happen? So you just remember details from that thing. It is Oz when you go there. It's just this weird, bizarre place. And then on the other end of it is just a man behind a curtain just making a little TV show and these little low ceilings things. So I think that movie really captured the magic of that. It's a maelstrom. No one will help you. You can't guide a way through. There is no big picture here. We're just trying to make shit. We're throwing things at a wall. Hope it works. I love the monologue at the end. The guy who played, first of all, Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase, I thought was masterful. I love the guy who played Dan Aykroyd. I love the guy who played Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Lamorne Morris was Garrett Morris. I kept forgetting actually Garrett Morris.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up. They're not related because I was oh, he must be his nephew or something because with the same, I never thought with that same Morris. And I never thought they look alike. To this movie, he's channeling Garrett Morris. No, they're not related. Lamorne Morris just really gets Garrett Morris in this way that's really incredible. I mean, I just thought it was so much fun. And I got emotional at the end when they play the music and they say live from New York. I started crying.
Yeah.
Because it's just part of our DNA at this point. And, in this country and in comedy and everything. So I really enjoyed it.
I remember when I was in high school or maybe junior high, there was a book of Saturday Night Live scripts that were kind of it was kind of like a scrapbook, and I bought it and I would do pieces from it in speech class. This was it felt edgy and dangerous and the cone heads and all of it. So it's been part of our life forever. Drew, from your vantage point in the comedy world, it's gotten gayer in the last, 10 years. Bowen Yang, Jimmy Fowley writing, and
Punky Johnson and Kate McKinnon.
Right.
You also have writers, you have, Chris Kelly and Ken Sublette and James Anderson, like a lot of Paula Pell, a lot of queer writers, even those like, James and Paula who were there forever are allowed to be a lot more queer now. Oh, Julio Torres. I mean, like they're, Alex English, there are quite a few, like they're making an effort to be more queer.
I think it's cool, but I'm wondering how that unfolded.
I'm thinking of people like, yeah.
What's that?
Sorry. I'm just thinking of more queer people that work on that show.
But do you feel like, did Lorne Michaels one day go, okay, they're fine, they're great? Or like, how did those walls break down? Was it one person at a time?
They had to.
Whose talent was too undeniable? Or,
I think, just from my understanding, when I was there and I was told like, they're probably not going to get the gay thing. And it's just not what they, and it was kind of always kind of known that like, they're just not really interested in anything. There's a very specific type of Black performer that Lorne really enjoys. And that's about as diverse as it gets. And then and it changed, I think, because as the world was changing, but Bowen talks in the documentary about how he auditioned 4 times. And he just kept being like, there's never been, an East Asian cast member, let alone, Terry Sweeney was the only openly gay man on the show. So Bowen just at the point was like, this is just something I do. I'm just going to go and audition again for SNL. I know I'm not going to get it. And then when he finally got it, they were like, we want you to be a writer. And he was a writer for a year or two before he was a cast member. So it just took enough people, and there's this kind of creepy thing that happened when Kate McKinnon talks about when she got the show and had been on the Big Gay Sketch Show, and talked and something, and then Lorne basically said, "I didn't know you were gay. You tricked me," which is what I heard, and sort of Kate being like, oh, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry," but showing like his understanding of what a lesbian must be and look like and seem was not Kate McKinnon.
Right. That is such a telling anecdote. Yeah.
I know. People have broken a lot of those barriers. And I also think that the sensibility is like, oh, cool, the show's still great and even maybe better and more, interesting. Because queer people have always watched SNL. Queer people have always loved SNL. We've talked about it forever. But growing up, I talked about Jan Hooks. I didn't talk about Adam Sandler and the guys. I talked about all the women. The queerest thing we had on SNL were the women that were on the show. And we got a year with
Sweeney sisters.
Sweeney sisters, of course. Yeah. So I think they were not being like, oh, we sort of have changed.
All right.
Can I tell an anecdote that comes to mind there? It's apropos of nothing, but it kind of illustrates what Drew's talking about there. I have a friend who auditioned for the Groundlings years and years ago, and she's a woman of size. And she walked in with this woman who kind of looked like Barbie. And they said, introduce yourselves. And the woman was like, hi, my name is, Janice or Barbie. And I like, running and jumping and jogging or whatever. Right. And, it was kind of being that stereotype. And then they turned to my friend and they said, and you? And she goes, oh, I'm not her. And she got in.
Oh, that's a great story. All right. Yeah. All right. I like it. I want to talk about Sing Sing, but as a segue, what these things have in common is, Drew, you mentioned the Big Gay Sketch Show. Coleman Domingo was on the Big Gay Sketch Show, and I wrote for season 3 of it. And the talent that was in that group, like Kate McKinnon, Coleman Domingo, Nicole Payon, just everybody was like great. Stephen Guarino, all these people. But like you never hear about that in Kate's bios, or it's almost like it didn't happen. And I don't know if anyone's making a conscious decision around that, but like I remember Coleman Domingo, I felt for him because there were all these Black women in pop culture that were fun to make fun of at the time. Oprah, Tyra, even RuPaul in drag. And he always had to play them. Maya Angelou. And but he was always
Maya Angelou is the best Maya Angelou.
Yes.
David Allen Greer I love, was amazing, is amazing.
Yeah.
Great. But Coleman's Maya Angelou, as someone who sat in Maya Angelou's class, and I was like, you're nailing her in the exact way.
You sat in her class?
I was her. Yeah, she was a teacher of mine in college. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was insane. I did a whole show. I decided to.
No, I feel like I knew this,
but it was an insane experience, and Okay. I talk about it later, but it was why I went to Wake Forest in North Carolina, because I was like, I wanted to study with her. And there's just this thing about her that Coleman, and he also kind of got this kind of smiling through the pain, and then but this kind of a little bit like, wait, where am I? What's going on? Kind of a way as well. That was this. He was. I knew then. I was like, this is an actor. This guy he's incredible. Yeah.
So he was great to work with, and the time just so good and everything. But he's having this amazing career now. And Sing Sing is his latest movie. The first time I saw it, I don't know. I was in a mood. I went with it. I was so moved by it. I was crying like a mess. I talked about it on this podcast. Because kind of the theme of this podcast is I think art and creativity make life bearable, make the world go around. Like without it, what do we got nothing. And this movie illustrates that in a very vivid way, and not the most subtle way. But this world that they're in is not a very art friendly world, and they find a way to do it. And then I was driving home, and I was so moved by it, I was like, oh my God, Sing Sing is so good. And then I'm playing some podcast on my iPhone, and it just malfunctions in the car, so I just pull it out of the Apple Play. And the song that comes on the radio is the theme from Sing Sing on like Morning Becomes Electric or whatever, or like and I was like, oh my God, it's the movie. It's still with me. It's meant to be. So I got a little mushy around Sing Sing. I think the supporting actor, is it Clarence Macklin? Macklin, yeah. Sensational. And I liked what it was about. And Coleman has this amazing moment where he's trying to plead his case to get out of jail, to get parole earlier. And he talks about the program, and the interviewer is like, are you acting now? And you just see his face crack into where he thought this thing that was an asset to him is also now it's suspicious now. And it's just heartbreaking. And you see all that play on his face. So I know you guys might have a different opinion of Sing Sing, but I'm curious to hear it. The second time I saw it on video, I still enjoyed it. It wasn't the moment that I had before. But yeah, I love this backstory of the movie where almost all of them were people from this program in real life. So yeah, thoughts?
It was going to go first. I wanted to love this movie. I went and I saw this movie like in August or early. I was like a screen where like I'm a huge Coleman fan. I was like, I'm really in. I obviously someone who does theater, and I wanted to move and be cry. I felt like as I was watching it, I was like, oh, I think I would only really enjoy this story as a documentary with the real people and the actual going through the whole thing, because it just felt phony to me. And I couldn't buy into the world, and all my like hackles were going up about like, I don't buy that moment. I don't buy that.
Right.
And if I heard one more inmate say something to the likes of, oh man, that monologue. And I was like, oh, I couldn't stand. I was like, this is making me hate theater. It makes me really think theater is dumb and not a point, and that's just my blocking and all that stuff. I was like, I don't know that they would. And there was just something about it that felt like it was reaching too hard to be like Oscar baity. And I couldn't go on the ride. And then my cynicism comes in, and I felt like, oh, this is this year's Coda. Like, or this year's.
Oh, yeah, for sure it is.
And
yeah.
I hated that too. So I just don't enjoy like sentimental movies. And It's just, obviously they're for other people, but I kind of go, oh God, I don't buy it.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Glenn, where do you weigh in?
Well, I'm with Drew, but for different reasons. So not to pile on or yuck your yum.
No, it's okay. You're not going to yuck my yum. My yum is my yum.
Exactly.
So I came at it from a different place, only because I taught in jails and prisons for 5 years. And so what we did was offered inmates a respite from their day inside their cells. And so I kind of know that world really well.
What did you teach?
This wasn't that. I taught health.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so it started out with HIV, and then it extended to other STDs, and it just kind of like became this full blown thing. And it just didn't ring true to me. I didn't feel the world, and for a lot of reasons Drew mentioned, it felt a little. This isn't what I felt the inmates would be talking about on the regular, and it just didn't. There's lots of other things going on in their lives inside, and so this felt like it occupied a place that didn't ring true to me.
Interesting.
Yay. I was also just bored. More than anything else, I was just bored by the storytelling. But I did cry at the end, so I'm going to give it that.
Right.
It did actually the scene where he tried to state his case to the parole board. It moved me enough, and the ending did get me. So any movie that makes me cry has some merit, I always say.
Right.
But it more than anything else, I just wasn't entertained.
All right, interesting. All right. Well, as Shakira has told us, tears don't lie. Whose turn is it to talk next? That was mine. So, Glenn, what do you got?
Okay. I'm going to switch gears here drastically and talk about a very unsung film that I felt deserved a lot more attention, and it's called Green Border by the great Ska Holland. It's another black and white film that takes place along the border of Belarus and Poland, where refugees have been flown from such far-flung places as Afghanistan and Syria and just dumped and become political footballs between the two countries, where they'll go across the border and then just get shoved back and forth while they're in the cold, in the dank, rainy woods. Whole families with little kids trying to just get to Poland and then beyond so they can live a better life. And they're used by both governments. And the moment, I mean, it's kind of torture porny, but one of the pregnant refugees, they have her in a truck and they back her up to a hole in the fence between the two countries. But it's not a big hole, and they just shove her through. They throw this pregnant woman through this fence to dump her on the other side. Will stay with me for a long time. And then this is telling this story, and yet then it flash forwards it in time to today and talks about the Ukrainian refugees coming in and being treated completely differently than what you experience in the film, which tells you a lot about how we perceive one set of refugees over another and how we judge them. And just incredibly powerful film to watch. Not fun at all, but powerful.
Did you see it, Drew?
I did, and I loved it. I completely agree with what Glenn's saying. It was very difficult to watch and sit through. And but really, the black and white of it was beautifully shot. It was really it was. You follow the character. It's one of those like episodic thing. I like a movie where you're like, wait, what happened between this and that? And you kind of have to, but you follow these people and you really get into their stories. And I thought it was really powerful. I loved it.
All right. Another one that's going on my list. Guys, how are we doing on how many you have left? I have a handful left, but I could do a speed round or, we can keep going.
I have a handful left as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
We all have handfuls left. All right.
Yeah.
Drew, what's your next handful?
My next one, I will say to piggyback on Glenn's, difficult, I call these like eat your vegetables movies, but that are really great movies. And very difficult to watch. One was Nickel Boys that I thought was just another story that I sadly knew nothing about. A very important story, but a difficult movie to sit through, and for lots of reasons. Also a masterpiece of cinematography and the way it tells a story about these work camps, in the 60s that we had in United States. But the way this filmmaker, who did a great documentary called Hale County This Evening, I think was what it's called, was another one that I was like, I love the way he tells the story. And it was one that was not one that I was enjoying while I was watching it. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it stayed with me. The point of view of the film is it's shot from the point of view of these characters in a way that you don't normally see. My other one that I say is another one that I got a screener of, and it's just slowly working its way into theaters because it's having so many distribution problems, is a documentary called No Other Land. That is an incredible documentary, sort of made by a collective, Israel and Palestine. It's with both sides sort of like making this film about a small community that is losing their land, that I just was way invested into the characters. It's very small in scope, talking about the whole issue and how complicated things are, and it's such a plea for peace and understanding on both sides. I thought it was beautiful. Another very difficult movie, but quick. It's like 90 minutes and says so much in such a short amount of time. So it's great. You'll hear about it. It'll probably win the Oscar, I think. I don't know. It will be out soon.
I was happy to see it among the nominees because I knew that it was people that had seen it really appreciated it, but that it was having a hard time. So I'm glad that it made the cut. I saw Nickel Boys at a screening, and I really struggled with that point of view thing, and I almost left a bunch of times because I just found it frustrating.
Yeah, I get it.
And they were all the actors there, and the director was there, and I'm like, Dennis, you're going to leave. No, stay. And then the final home stretch, I was like so invested in it, and it made me so interested in the story that I started listening to the audio book that it's based on. And then I gave feedback later to the publicist because they reach out, and I just said, I like that they took the big swing. I struggled with it, but it made me really interested in the story. And enough people are getting on board with it that it got that Best Picture nomination over Sing Sing. So I respect it. It was an endurance test. So I admire the people that can just get on board with it right away. Glenn, what did you think of Nickel Boys?
Yeah, I mean, I walked out on it after an hour, but I knew that it was a great story. So I went back and I watched it in full, and I'm glad I did. I mean, I think it is a important, moving, great story. I understand the reasoning behind the point of view. I mean, because it's unique in that it's taking the civil rights era and putting you in the driver's seat.
Trying to make you the protagonist. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting, especially in a couple of moments. One when Ingenue Ellis comes to the university.
She's so good.
I know.
With her grandson, and that was really moving. But to me, the one that really sticks out is when you're in the point of view of the main character, and there's this racist old man who's poking him with a cane. And it is so brutal in it's a quiet moment, and yet it's unflinching with this guy who just feels like he has the right to do that to somebody, and then walk away with a police officer sneering at him. And so in that moment, I really understood why he wanted to tell the story this way. It was tough. And I thought it was really hard to connect to the main characters because of that. I think you eventually do, though. And so I'm glad I stuck it out.
Right.
I haven't seen No Other Land yet, but that's high on my list.
Yeah. Looking at my list, I saw I'm Still Here, the Brazilian nominee.
I can't wait. That's the one big one I haven't seen.
I saw it this week, and it's wonderful. Fernanda Torres is wonderful. What stuck out the most for me is the first half hour or so is just the depiction of this family in Brazil. And they've got 5 kids, and it's a kind of family life that is functional. And it felt so weird to see a functional family where maybe they bickered and teased each other, but they all loved each other. The husband and wife played backgammon together. They loved each other. No kids were on their phone. Nobody was talking about ADHD or body dysmorphia. Like, it just felt like an impossible family. And that's the point, because something happens and then this world is shattered and that perfect family is gone. But the depiction of a family just felt so refreshing. And Rio de Janeiro was beautiful. And Fernanda Torres, it's a true story. And at the end, you see actual footage of or photos and stuff, and you're putting together the whole story. And she plays a really inspiring woman, a woman who went through something horrible and managed to put herself back together and build this completely different kind of life where she did so much good in the world. And that part was really inspiring. So highly recommended. I would like it to win over Emelia Perez for foreign film. Yeah. So although the way things are going,
and I want it to win. I haven't seen. I'm here, and I want it to win over Emelia Perez.
I don't know if we even talked about Emelia Perez, or if we even want to. I don't think we even want to. I don't think nobody wants. I don't even want to look at a poster of it on a billboard. It just feels so ick, right? It feels like we were sold a bill of goods or something. I don't know.
Yeah, some people were. I went in so wanting to. Again, I was like, what am I missing here? And I just was like, I think this is offensive to trans people. I think this is offensive to Mexican people. I think this is offensive to musical theater lovers. Oh, I'm not enjoying this at all on any level. This is actually a bad, problematic movie. Well, what it's actually saying about the trans experience and about Mexican people is not good, y'all. Like, that's not how we're trying to move forward in this world. And it's just stupid. It's a stupid movie. I mean, that's all I have to say.
Well, as it's unfolding, it's kind of original and there's some good performances and you're like, wow, what is this? And I'm kind of into it. And it's got that telenovela kind of, oh my God, that happened. And then this. And then at the end, I was thinking, what was that about? What am I meant to be thinking? What am I meant to be thinking about? Because even other movies, there's themes that you take away and they stay with you. And with that, I was like, I don't know what that was. And so this moment where it's all kind of coming unglued is very curious. Glenn, do you have any thoughts on that? Or because we were talking about skipping it and we just haven't skipped it.
Yeah, I'll quickly talk about it, but then I'm going to veer back to I'm still here.
Yes, please.
So after I saw Emelia Perez, I knew that it was problematic immediately. And so I thought, am I going to write a review about this? And instead I approached this trans male friend of mine who's also a talented writer. And I said, do you want to guest review this? And he goes, no. So that was my answer. I'm like, okay, we're on the same page here. So going back to I'm Still Here, because I think it's a wonderful film. And I watched it and I'm like, Fernanda Torres, like I know her, but I've never seen her before, right? And I was like, I couldn't reconcile it. And so when it was over, I looked it up and it's like, oh, her mother is Fernanda Montenegro, who looks just like her and who is in Walter Sallis's Central Station. So both mother and daughter have been in a Walter Sallis film and gotten Academy recognition, which is amazing and deserved. And this film, though, Fernanda Montenegro is also in it. And I thought it was Fernanda Torres in old age makeup.
I did too.
But there's the incredible performance by Fernanda Montenegro. It's wordless. She's just looking you down to the barrel of the camera. And what she says just with her facial expressions will forever be with me. It's an amazing performance. And she's literally got maybe 30 seconds of screen time. And it's incredible. Worth sitting through the entire film, which is great, mind you. But when you get to that, it's like this delicious little extra thing that you get in the film. Her performance with Fernanda Torres is great. The fact that it's told from her point of view, this whole history of a dictatorship in Brazil, told through this evolving character who is getting smarter and smarter as it goes and figures out how to fight the power. And it really just... It's so moving and it's so vivid, and that 70s vibe of it in the beginning is so incredibly directed. Great film.
You know what sucks about this current moment is all these movies about horrible shit happening. They've never been where like that was timely. It's so resonant. Like, oh God, anyway. I'm glad the art exists and that they're doing it, and even Wicked. All of this shit is like, you almost shudder at the relevance and the way it feels like the current moment. All right, guys, we all have a few movies left, so let's just kind of do a lightning round. Drew, give us a rundown of what you got left.
Okay, movies that I love, and this is just by the sake of the order of all the things. Two great films about girls in the woods that are just incredible, cracking screenplays, amazing performances, small films that you must see. One of them is called Good One that it kind of snuck on the radar that I think is phenomenal. Great script, really unknown ending I didn't see coming. And another fantastic movie, My Old Ass, that I was laughing and I was sobbing at the end. It moved me tremendously. Highly recommend that. And Aubrey Plaza and Maisie Stella. Incredible work in that. Maybe one of my favorite movies of the year that's also just like just miserable people talking, and 90 minutes of I was again moved to tears and cackling laughing, is Mike Leigh's film Hard Truths with Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who gives the best performance I've seen this year. Highly recommend that movie. Another one of my favorite performances of the year was June Squibb in Thelma, which was
that's right,
a throwback to the kind of movies you never see anymore. And I've seen Thelma twice. I fucking love Thelma, and it's just everything about it. I'm like, reminds me of the Capers I saw growing up. And June Squibb, another overlooked performance this year that was great. I thought one of my favorite queer movies of the year that I was an indie spirit darling that I kind of didn't see for a long time, blew my mind. I can't say I fully understood all of it, but the vibe was so there for me is a film called I Saw the TV Glow. It was a very polarizing movie, but for me was like, oh, this blows my mind apart in a beautiful way. I'm a huge fan of that. Another equally awesome queer movie that's been maybe my first of the year that I talk about that I loved is an action film called Love Lies Bleeding, which is over the top in all the best ways. It is one of the sexiest movies. Not since Bound have I seen like girl on girl sex be so like visceral and just like, oh my God, this is so hot. I love it. And then finally, another one of my favorite movies of the year that's also been very overlooked, and I'm not sure why. I saw this the day after the election, was Nightbitch, starring the brilliant Amy Adams. I was like about being a woman as an animal and just the experience of being a mother. And I just needed to see a woman win and be in charge and just be an animal. And that movie, I've seen Nightbitch twice. And so I love that movie too.
Excellent.
So those are my...
I loved My Old Ass too, and it's not what you think you're getting when you see the trailer.
Not at all.
And it
not at all.
Goes into these interesting places, and it makes you think about your own life. Yeah, thumbs up on that one. Glenn, any thoughts on any of the ones that Drew just did?
Yeah, I'll be quick because we're in a lightning round here. So My Old Ass, I think, is the good version of Coda.
Yes.
Thelma, I just love watching her and the late Richard Roundtree walk away from an explosion. That just made my year. Just wonderful. Yeah, I agree with all the rest except Nightbitch. Unfortunately, I did not respond to it. It just was just too obvious to me. That was all. There was no subtext to that film. It just was all text. Really well performed with Amy Adams and Scoot McNairy playing their parts beautifully. I just thought it didn't really go as far as I wanted it to go. It just kind of sat in one place for me.
Oh, I saw this tweet about how all the Oscar movies are kind of falling apart and the wheels are coming off, and they love the idea of just Thelma showing up on her scooter to save the day, to save the Oscars from all the scandals. I'm going to run down my list of things that I didn't talk about. I love Deadpool and Wolverine, and this will surprise no one that listens to this podcast. I got a little teary because I love stories about friendship, and it was funny and like it kind of moved me. There's a gay movie called The Judgment set in Egypt that's kind of cool. It's like, oh, this is what it's like there, but it had like these supernatural elements that I thought were cool. Complete Unknown. I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. I don't know. I just enjoyed watching it because it was just the actors were so good and the looked so good. And I enjoyed that. And we never really talked about The Last Showgirl, though we promised we would on the last episode. I love the world of it because I used to be a cruise ship dancer. And so there's a part of me that knows these people. And like when I worked on the cruise ships, there was this feeling of like, if you don't leave at a certain point, you're going to never leave. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when are you going to stop doing that? And this is a story about a woman who loved the world of this particular show, Pamela Anderson, and she just stuck with it. And then the show ended. And then she was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I related a lot to that, where like she picked the thing that she loved, and then she ran out of road. And I think I relate to that because that's exactly where I've been for the last 10 years. Yeah, I don't know. I like the supporting cast and the way it was shot and the tacky Vegas of it all. And anyway, I was into it. I think those are all the movies that I hadn't really talked about. All right, Glenn, do you have a final lightning round list?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to start with The Piano Lesson. A very underlooked Ray Fisher, who plays this character where your heart goes out to him when he buys a new suit and he find a woman at a bar, and it doesn't quite go that way for him, and you feel for him. I think he is the gem of that film. Hundreds of Beavers, I think, is just a masterpiece of slapstick from beginning to end. If you haven't checked it out, it's streaming now. It's just sort of semi-live action Looney Tunes with just very inventive. I think the sexiest chemistry of the year came from Hitman. I think that our main characters have this great scene where they're wired, and so someone else is listening to their conversation. They're saying one thing, but then they're showing each other their notes from their phones that say something completely different. I think that was a really lovely scene. And Problemista, I will wrap it up with this one, because Drew mentioned Julio Torres earlier, and he's the writer, director, lead actor in this. with, to me, a never better Tilda Swinton, who played a difficult woman alive, and he goes to work for her because he's trying to get his green card, and you feel like it's going to be a movie about him putting up with her, but he comes to love her. And I think it's so beautiful the way this film evolves in looking at a difficult character in a different way, much like Hard Truths. You're looking at what on the surface is the angriest woman alive. She's the Larry David of the film, Marianne Jean-Baptiste. And yet you come to understand her, and you come to understand why she is the way she is. And I thought that was so beautifully done, and I think Mike Leigh's best film in many years, because that performance is hilarious and yet heartbreaking at the same time.
I definitely need to see that. All right.
Problemista was on my list last year because I got to see it last year. And so I put it still as an honor much because I was like, I'm so glad you mentioned Problemista again, because I saw it a year ago, and I remember last year saying, I love that movie. And yeah.
I saw it at Outfest when there was still an in-person Outfest, which I hope we get back this year. Before we let you guys go, what movie are you looking forward to in 2025? I'll go first. Kiss of the Spider-Woman. It's a little obvious, but I'm a fan of Bill Condon. I know him a bit. I haven't seen him in years, but I admire his talent, and I'm ready for justice for J-Lo. I just feel like she just doesn't give up, and she's a workhorse. She's going to do the knee slide. And I find there's something poignant about it. There's something a little exhausting about her, because one of the first movies I saw last year was This Is Me Now. And I went to the premiere, and she was there, and it was just a lot. And then there's the documentary that was also a lot. And I just like that she's having this moment. And it sounds like the actors that are the prisoners do a wonderful job. So, I guess I have to go on living to see Kiss of the Spider-Woman. All right. What are you looking forward to, Glenn?
Two.
Okay.
So in the immediate future, I'm looking forward to seeing The Monkey. I like Osgood Holmes, and he's, doing a Stephen King novel here, and I've heard great things. So I can't wait to see that. I'm going to see that sometime this month. So looking forward. But throughout the entire year, the one that I'm going to be salivating over, and I can't wait, and I know Drew can wait, is Wicked for Good, the second part to Wicked. Because I love the first one so much, I can't wait to see what Ariana and Cynthia and John and the Jew come up with next. I hated the stage show, especially the second half for me. I just hate the songs in it. So they've added 2 new songs. I think that they'll probably make it better than what I saw, so I'm looking forward.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're going to do at the Target stores with merch for the second one. Like I feel like they shot their load, but maybe they haven't. Drew, what are you looking forward to?
I would say I am actually looking forward to Wicked 2, just because I actually like the second act more than the first act of Wicked. It's actually about Oz more, and it's more clever. Like, oh, this is the origin of the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion, and I did think the movie improved very much on the stage material. So I will definitely go see that. And Kiss the Spider-Woman, I love that. I love that play. I have loved that material for a long time. I've actually never seen the musical on stage, so I'm excited to see that film as well. Mine is the new Paul Thomas Anderson film with Leonardo DiCaprio, which I don't know if it has a title yet, but he's made an action film with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Car chases and stuff.
And Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors. I just go to the ends of the earth for his work and movies, and so I just want to see what he does with an action film and that whole world, and so I'm very, very excited for that.
All right. Movies are the best. Aren't they the best?
Yes.
I love them. I love them so much. Anyway, you guys, thanks for doing this. This is a long one, but you know what? Lots of fun recommendations, and I feel like we've done our due diligence.
Yep.
So, thank you so much for weighing in, and we'll see you at the movies. Get it? Who used to say that? Siskel and Ebert?
Siskel and Ebert, I think.
Which is such a lie, because they were always by themselves in the balcony.
And they hated each other.
They didn't even see each other at the movies. Anyway, It's all an illusion. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Glenn and Drew, and thank you guys for sticking it out and listening. That was a long one, but so much good information about so many good movies. All right. So this happened. I'm going to keep it short. My voice is a little gone. I'm still recovering, from this cold I had. But I also went out gay dancing last night and stayed out late and danced. My friends Mark and Jason, DJ Shyboy and Mark Newber, they do a monthly show now at Precinct, the mashup shows that they're club nights that they do. And it was Brittany Houston last night. And we went out and tore it up with some friends, and it was so fun to be out in that environment. And now my voice is a little hoarse, as you can hear. But, the next one they're doing on March 1st is Kylie XCX. So it's going to be all Kylie Minogue and Charlie XCX. And they mashed them together brilliantly. So I'm all about it. All right, that's enough for this week. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.